All right, all right, all right. Good morning and welcome to Helium House, New York. Let's wake up. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. It's late in the morning. Everybody had their coffee. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Scott Siegel from the Helium Foundation. We got an absolutely amazing program ahead today. First, I just want to say thanks for spending the day with us, especially the folks that came in from out of town. Really appreciate you coming in, joining us in the community. New York is my home. I am a local, so if I could do anything to make your stay more comfortable, strong opinions on pizza, pastrami, bagels, please come find me. I'm here for you. So we got an absolutely wonderful day ahead. We're going to have some amazing talks about scalability, use cases. We're going to talk about developments on the LoRaWAN side of things. Things that are happening on the cellular side. So really fantastic chats. Overall, it's really just nice to see the community together again. It's our second time this year since Austin. So please make some friends, catch up with some old friends. We got a really amazing dynamic cross-section of the community here today. So we got our IoT folks, radio folks, crypto developers, folks I know who are chomping at the bit for all things cellular. So please make your way around, visit some folks at the booth, look for some Helium shirts, some Nova shirts. But in general, we're all here to build this network together. So thank you all very much for coming out. Without further ado, I want to bring up the founder of the Helium Network and CEO of Nova Labs, Amir Haleem. Come on up.
Oh no, my clicker isn't working. There we go. Good to see you all. Thank you all for coming. Oh goodness, we've jumped ahead a whole bunch of slides. We'll try and go back. Hello. Thank you all for coming out. For those of you that were in Austin, it's great to see you again. Always great to see the community out here in force. I'm always blown away by how many people are involved in Helium, and today appears to be no exception. I'm Amir, the CEO of Nova Labs. It was formerly Helium Systems, Inc., and I wanted to talk to you about some cool things that are going on today. So first of all, I wanted to give a little bit of background about the Helium Network and Helium as a company to some degree back in the day. We set out almost a decade ago to build a ubiquitous wireless network. That was our mission objective at the time. We didn't really know the best approach to solving this problem. We just knew that it was a problem that needed to be solved. You had all kinds of applications and use cases, the cat, I guess, is a pet tracker. But we were trying to figure out what was the best way to build a wireless network that served these kinds of applications that wouldn't really work on cellular, wouldn't work on Wi-Fi, wouldn't work on Bluetooth for a whole bunch of different reasons. So 10 years ago, we embarked on a mission to build a ubiquitous wireless network. It wasn't until several years into our journey that we hit upon the idea of trying to share this idea with the community. Rather than build the network ourselves and try and own it ourselves and try and charge people to use it that way, it would be better if we shared it with the community and allowed people to build the network and made it grow that way effectively. So this was kind of the start, the genesis, if you wanted to call it, of the original version of Helium, which was you had hotspots, you had users of the network, and people built the network. I think everyone knows this has become known as the People's Network. And really, it's been remarkable to see how this has progressed. I'm hoping, who here doesn't have a hotspot, by the way? See some hands. You don't have a hotspot. All right, we'll get you one. I think everyone here is pretty familiar with what a hotspot is. Everyone understands how they work, what they do. But to see the growth of the network has been kind of remarkable. So I wish we had a picture of the map actually in the early days, but we now have almost 1 million hotspots across the globe, which to me is just absolutely mind-blowing. We started this with 150 hotspots in Austin, and just within 3 years, we're at almost 1 million worldwide. I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I think it's 65 or 70,000 cities. It's 150 countries. I think almost every country has a hotspot in it. And I was told, where's Dave Akers in the community? He's here somewhere. He told me that every month, roughly 10,000 cities move data across the network, which I think is also an incredible statistic. So really thanks to all of you for building this network. We certainly couldn't have done any of this without the community involved. These are some of the interesting applications that you probably have heard of or at least know of. So Drone Deck is a company doing drone-assisted package delivery, which to me is one of the most interesting and fascinating use cases. There is a bizarre and interesting story that involved Jeff Bezos all the way back when we founded Helium when they were figuring out how to do this with Amazon. So it's really, really cool to see this come to light now in a real way using the Helium network. M3 Agriculture is using Helium for precision agriculture applications, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with precision ag, it is all about how do I make farming more efficient, right? Like how do I use less water? How do I grow more crops? And using sensors to do that in a way that you couldn't feasibly do before because it was too expensive is part of the magic that I think Helium has brought. Airly is another one of the early and most interesting applications that we saw on the network, which is air quality monitoring, environmental monitoring. Again, one of these applications that just makes total sense to use a network like Helium. There's still some companies out there driving around cars to monitor air quality, and we think it's probably a better way to just stick a sensor somewhere and have it report data now that there's coverage basically everywhere, at least in the United States and most of Europe. WeatherXM, I think a lot of you guys have heard of. Again, another, I think, super interesting use case, especially where I live, where there's a lot of fires. Knowing super micro weather data is not something that's been typically available. And so WeatherXM is another super interesting project that also has its own sort of crypto roots that is also using Helium to be able to provide accurate weather data to its community. These are some of the other companies all of these companies I think are here today. So on the other side of this wall, please go and check them out. So there's all sorts of interesting stuff going on, but I strongly recommend everyone goes at least looks at these companies and says hi, and has a sense of what they're up to. I want to talk about the community for a second. So this is the logo of the Helium Vote website for those of you that are familiar with it. The community has been awe-inspiring for us. So there's 150, 160,000 members in our Discord. I don't remember the other statistics, but they're large. I think there's about 100,000 people on Reddit, but I try not to go on Reddit anymore, just for my own self-preservation and sanity. It's rough out there, but it's also a big community. Hello, Redditors. So there's been some super interesting things proposed by the community. Like one of the things that I think has been the most exciting for me to watch is that people have really contributed most of the ideas that matter in the Helium network. We started out with an idea of what we were trying to do. It was just an idea, right? And what has happened after that is the community has taken this idea and turned it into has presented all sorts of amazing ideas. These numbers are not lottery numbers, or someone I think suggested they were the lost. What were the lost numbers again? I forget what they are. But that's not what these are. These are actually some of the most significant HIPs that have passed through the community in recent times. 39 was the redenomination, which I think was repealed in 67. I don't know who voted for or against that one, but I was always indifferent about it. 51, 2, and 3 we'll talk about in a second. 55, I think, was validator challenges. So all sorts of super interesting stuff has come really directly from the community. And to me, that's what is the most powerful thing about Helium. The idea of Helium is that the community owns it, the community contributes to it. HIP 70, I'm not going to get a ton into it right this second because there's a whole panel and a whole thing about it later. But HIP 70 is one of the most recent HIPs to be proposed. It is the idea of radically simplifying and changing the architecture of what Helium looks like today. The only thing people seem to care about is the fact that it's going to move to Solana, but it is a much more complicated proposal than that. So I would strongly recommend that everyone here spend some time thinking about what HIP 70 proposes. Try and ignore the part about the L1. Largely doesn't make a huge difference in this scheme of things. Voting ends tomorrow afternoon, or I think tomorrow evening. So go to heliumvote.com and please contribute. I know lots of people think that there's no point in voting, whales control the vote. It's not the case. Everyone needs to vote. Everyone's vote matters in this scheme. HIP 51 was passed a few months ago and was probably the most significant change to the Helium network that we've had so far. It proposed the idea of multiple token types. So on the left you have the IoT token, and on the right you have the mobile token. And the idea here was that we wanted each type of network to have its own token. It no longer, in our mind, made sense for a singular token to govern the entire network. IoT users have their own set of requirements. They need their own set of governance. Mobile users have their own set of requirements. They need their own set of governance. Splitting the tokens up this way, to me, was a very genius proposal. Came from the Multicoin team, some of our team. Very, very happy with how this turned out. But it really set the groundwork for what we're doing next and what the Helium network is going to do next. these are some of the most interesting and exciting, I think, 5G installations. I'm especially a fan of these, like this one on the right, where it's both an IoT and a mobile installation, and there's a whole bunch of those. And to see like what people have done here in terms of building a real-time cellular network is, to me, like absolutely incredible. Again, like twin installations where you have IoT and mobile in the same location. There's a WeatherXM installation here at the same time, and this, I think, is just an example of the power of the community. Like, for a traditional telco to build a network this way is close to impossible. Accessing all of the real estate, doing all the deployments, extremely challenging. So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is Nova. And so, a few months ago, we tried to create the split between the Helium network and the community, and Nova as the company that was originally the founding entity. I think everyone knows back in March we announced that we raised a ton of cash, relatively, although in crypto terms really not that much cash anymore, I guess, but seemed like a lot of cash at the time. We've been in complete stealth about what we're doing. I think a lot of people have been speculating about what we're up to, why we're doing it, what comes next, why we raised this money, why the money was raised for equity only. What does it all mean? We're still extremely committed to being the core development team for the Helium network. That's never going to change. We hope that as a result of something like HIP 70, the number of people that can contribute to the network grows. We don't want to be the only core development team that works on this network. We think there are many, many more people that can contribute. It's just hard today because it's written in Erlang, it's very complicated, it's very big, it's messy, it's evolved a lot over 3 years. HIP 70 is an opportunity to reshape that and to allow more people to contribute. But in terms of what Nova's doing, I wanted to play a little video and then step off the stage so that you have some sense of what we're doing next.
Hello, everyone. So, I'm Boris. Amir, thank you for doing a great job introducing me without actually introducing me. Some of you may know me. I, until recently, was the co-founder and CEO at FreedomFi, and we were sort of had the privilege to an extent drive or be part of the Helium 5G journey. A lot of people meeting me in the crowd here asking, okay, well, this acquisition happened, what has changed? Not much has changed. I have a different t-shirt now, but I continue to remain responsible largely for all things Helium 5G, but now at Nova. So, what I wanted to talk about today is the new kind of a big reveal. I know the community's been like making bets and trying to figure out what is it going to be. So what we're doing is we're going to be launching Helium Mobile, which is the world's first crypto carrier. Yay! Come on, yay! Never done before. So what the hell is a crypto carrier? Some of you know that we've been, selling FreedomFi SIM cards. People have been deploying radios, and people have been buying FreedomFi SIM cards, and like you can connect with a SIM card to the radio, but then you walk like 3 blocks away from the radio, and the signal's no longer there, so it's not really like a network. So Helium Mobile is going to be a real nationwide 5G carrier that will provide real voice and data plans for as little as $5 a month. We'll have a lineup of plans starting with, just, hey, you want to play around, $5 a month, all the way to unlimited plans. And I want to spend a couple of minutes to talk about like why this concept is unique and how Helium Mobile is different. First and foremost, as you know, and we wanted to thank the community again about doing what I believe to be an outstanding job during this early Genesis period deploying the radios. We have 4,500 hotspots across 1,000 cities, but another important statistic that I think is worth mentioning is that in the last 30 days, I think we've deployed 1,800 of those hotspots. And these numbers might not seem like, astronomically crazy numbers compared to 1 million worldwide LoRa hotspots, but as you know, we are deploying in the CBRS band. And if you look at some of the more mature kind of deployments that exist today, that have initiated as far back as 2.5 years ago, when CBRS band first became available, you would see people that having deployed maybe like 800, 1,000 cells. And these we're talking about some of the carriers, cable operators, stuff like that. So in the last 30 days, we have deployed at least twice the number of cells as the other biggest CBRS installation out there, and the pace is accelerating. So continue doing that. That is extremely important. This is what will allow us to offer superior economics as Helium Mobile, because the biggest problem to small cell deployment is site acquisition, which using our deployment bottoms-up model, we're completely solving for. The other part I want to talk about is that as a crypto carrier, I think we'll have a different relationship with our subscribers, dramatically different from that of a typical operator. We view our subscribers as members of the people's network, as members of the ecosystem that don't simply pay money to get the service, but those that have the opportunity to proactively participate in network creation. I'm not sure that a lot of you have kind of read into the details of how HIP 53 works, but one of the important tenets of it is that we have earmarked certain pool of mobile tokens to be allocated to various operators that join in and participate in the people's network on the mobile side. And the idea behind this allocation is specifically to enable operators to come up with different creative schemes for rewarding the subscribers for being part of the network. I think that kind of the combination of creativity and crypto in general just opens opportunity for unlimited innovation in the space. So think about it this way. It's a common saying that the best investor in any startup is a customer. And that's true, because the customer gives you money, but they also actually use your product. But as a customer of a startup, you oftentimes buy yourself a lot of pain in the ass, but you don't actually get rewarded for anything. So with this system, it's actually possible to reward the initial set of trailblazers that are subscribing to the network and are potentially taking upon themselves the burden of figuring out some of the kinks that may happen with the network. We can be more creative and come up with things like data plans, such as where if you have not used up everything that's allotted for you in your data plan, you get compensated with mobile tokens for the unused data. And you can innovate almost infinitely with a variety of interesting models that both allow us to very quickly grow the network on the demand side, as well as allow the subscribers to actually be the real participants to the network building. So, final important point I wanted to make. We were always very vocal about the use case for the Helium 5G network, that it's actually an offload network. It's not the kind of network that can blanket the US. It's just such other properties of the CBRS band that you cannot build the network using CBRS small cells and create ubiquitous coverage everywhere. For you to have nationwide coverage, you need to have a partnership with a macro operator. And today, we are about to announce this partnership. So I'm very happy to announce that our partnership is with T-Mobile. Yeah! So I would like to welcome Greg Langskoff and a gentleman that needs no introduction, Frank Mong, to moderate a fireside chat, and we can talk about what that means.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, man. Well,
That me?
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you again to the community. And thanks for those watching us on the live stream. Really appreciate all your time in joining us as we celebrate this massive announcement for the entire Helium community. This has been in the works for a while. So what I wanted to do is just ask a few questions and also get a sense of who the folks are on the stage, especially for new members of our community. I'm Frank Mong, the Chief Operating Officer at Nova Labs. I've been with the Helium community, with Helium Systems Inc. and the entire team for almost 5 years now. And I wanted to welcome Boris. You guys all know Boris, but for those that don't know Boris, can you do a quick intro of yourself? How long have you been in this telco space, crypto space, tech space?
So, I'm Boris. I'm GM of Wireless at Nova Labs. I think I did kind of an introduction when I came first on stage, but a little bit of background. So my professional background is very much in open source infrastructure. And I've gotten into the wireless space about 3-ish years ago. Specifically working on this open source project called Magma, which is basically like network core, also known as the software side of cellular networks. And about, a year and a half now ago, we focused kind of everything that we did towards partnering with Helium. At the time, Nova Labs did not exist, with a vision to build this neutral host network.
That's right. That's right. And we met Boris because Abai, our Chief Product Officer, saw a YouTube video with you in it.
Yes, that is correct. The GOAT video. Some of you maybe have seen it.
Check out FreedomFi GOAT video. It's quite the video. Very good. Now, our special guest, Greg. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Greg Lanskov. I've been at T-Mobile about 13 years, and about the last 10 have been leading our business development group within our wholesale business unit.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. So this has been some time in the making between FreedomFi, Nova Labs, and now Helium Mobile and T-Mobile. What I want to ask you, and I'm sure lots of us in the audience are curious, when you first saw this deal come to your inbox or your desk, what was your reaction to Helium when you saw that?
Yeah, so the wholesale group at T-Mobile is it's very interesting, very fun. We're a self-contained business unit. We get the privilege of viewing new innovative ideas and companies that look at new segments of the market. And so the initial reaction is, let's learn more about it, because we're always on the lookout for how we can enable complementary businesses to the T-Mobile enterprise.
So does T-Mobile know what crypto is? Do they like crypto?
Speaking for myself, I've been a crypto fan for a long time. The company doesn't necessarily have a formal strategy on it, but that's what makes, again, the wholesale business unit so interesting for us, because we get to explore those kinds of things. And as we went through sort of the cross-functional discussions at T-Mobile, there was never any sort of trepidation against it. It was just, hey, let's learn more about it.
Great. Boris, what drew you initially in the early days of conversation with T-Mobile? What sort of drew you into this partnership more and more?
Well, like I said, I think the day one, it was clear that we need to have a macro partner to really create a useful service based off of the network that we're deploying. So, initially, we didn't just, say, okay, we're going to go for T-Mobile. We were exploring with everybody. And some of the operators, not to name any names, they just didn't reply. Because, crypto stuff, that's just crazy. Forget it, liability, don't want to deal with it. So, but most have. And building a relationship like this is about solving a lot of technical problems, building, understanding the people on the other side. So it's never like, you come over to a carrier and say, hey, I want to use your macro network to build a service. You're like, okay, right, fill out your information on the website right there, let's go do it. It's more of like a two-sided learning experience that takes a long time. So I think that we were in conversations just kind of like sniffing each other, different operators and us for probably 6 months. And then ultimately, after a lot of conversation, after coming close to, I would say, a lot of the solutions related how to integrate the two networks together, we made the choice that I think that T-Mobile is the right partner because largely of the passion and very importantly also the innovative spirit of the company that we've uncovered by talking to a lot of the stakeholders on the other side.
And Greg, you mentioned your team gets to be innovative, right? The wholesale team at T-Mobile has that liberty, which is fantastic. When you look at what we're trying to do with Helium Mobile, being the first crypto carrier, how special and different is that from your other partnerships?
Yeah, so in my tenure there, we've been pretty thoughtful around how we look at our portfolio from a segmentation standpoint. And the most successful partnerships are the ones that we are able to partner deeply with and really learn from each other. And then also do something unique, do something that's truly hasn't been done before or finds a segment of the marketplace that is just new and different and or incremental. And so this is no different. We haven't done a lot. Our portfolio is fairly tight of scale, successful wholesale partners, but every single one that has gotten to scale and been successful has been fit in that same category. Something that's new, that's innovative, and that goes into a deep partnership.
That's great. I hear deep partnership. That sounds like commitment to the Helium community to me. That's how I interpret it. We'll leave it at that. That's great. Boris, now that we have the Helium mobile service and we've got this fantastic partnership with T-Mobile, what's like the near-term first step? What are you most concerned about? What are you going to be pushing the team to deliver in the early days?
Yeah, so one thing to mention is that we will actually launch the service live in Q1 of next year. Probably there's going to be some opportunities to beta test it, maybe a little bit earlier. But the biggest, there's a whole bunch of technology integration work that we need to do to make sure that the Helium neutral host network, as we call it, works with the T-Mobile macro network. And I think that we need to also jointly with the T-Mobile team do a lot of pathfinding to ensure that this interoperability is seamless for the end users. Because this is, from a technology standpoint, a very unique partnership. This is a problem for the industry at large. The telecom industry tends to be very sort of, template driven, and a lot of the technology templates are built by standards bodies like 3GPP, that say, here's how you deploy the network, 5G network like this, LTE network like that, here are the pieces, here's how you connect them together. But the notion of having a neutral host network, let alone people deployed neutral host network that is kind of like not in control of a single commercial entity, marrying with a macro network such that somebody can use both, prefer the people's network in places where there is overlapping coverage, and also facilitate for seamless experience, seamless handoffs between the two networks. This is not a problem that's ever been solved, and it's not a problem that's even unique to, I think, Helium Mobile and T-Mobile in this particular case. There is a notion of neutral host networks evolving, and eventually this problem needs to be solved. But we're kind of trailblazing the solution. So getting it solved, I think, is going to take few iterations. I, frankly think that when we launch in Q1, we're going to be, 70% of the way there, but maybe not 100% of the way there. But solving for this kind of seamless interop between the two networks, I think, is the hardest problem, the one that I don't sleep at night over the most.
And that interop is for the benefit of the actual subscriber. So their user experience is wonderful.
Exactly.
And so Greg, with that in mind, the deep partnership with us and supporting our efforts, how do you envision your team helping us along the journey here, especially in the early days?
Yeah, so I think the key point for us at this point, it is early days. Yeah. Like we don't know on how this would evolve, but we're excited about trying to figure out what that means. And to the extent that the enterprise, in a broader sense, participates, that's only going to fuel more innovation for the T-Mobile, the broader T-Mobile enterprise. So we're excited to learn along with you guys.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the I think uniquenesses of the Helium community and the Helium network is that it is built by the people. The folks in this room were part of us along the original journey with our LoRaWAN IoT miners. And now there's an option to continue that and build on a unlicensed spectrum CBRS network in the United States, which means these individuals, as well as those watching, can not just become users and subscribers of a new mobile network, but they can help us build it along the way. And so from a T-Mobile perspective, what advice would you give them to help build a network along the way? How could they be helpful, for both Helium Mobile as well as T-Mobile?
Well, from my perspective, just speaking for myself, the whole crypto ethos is a continual feedback loop. And so as you try to scale, one of the biggest challenges for a new operator is getting to that critical mass. And so having an ability to have users in distributed places, getting enough volume of users to get good feedback loops, and really build that momentum is probably the most important thing from my perspective.
That's great. So work closely with you guys, right, on building out the network locations, but also getting enough usage to see critical mass, see how things are going, help with the integrations. That's going to really help us improve quickly.
I believe so. And being an operator is not straightforward.
Right.
A subscription model for a critical service that people depend on daily, there's a high bar for what that experience needs to be.
Definitely.
And so, just really fostering that in the early days I think is great.
Definitely. Boris, any sense or forward-looking things you want to give the community while we're up here to how they should expect to mobilize to help you?
Yeah, don't install 20 cells side by side and point them to the concrete wall. That does not create useful coverage for us or for T-Mobile or for anybody. So, but jokes aside, that's not really entirely a joke. I think one of the one of the big vectors for us is to actually, in the next, I would say 12 months or so, to dramatically evolve how the compensation model works for people deploying the cells, and do it together with also evolving the tools such as Explorer to enable people to make those decisions intelligently. we're still early days. Right now, people put in 20 cells, point them to the trees, and you can see hexes in the Explorer. There is 10 cells in one place, and even Explorer itself does not, I would say, give a extremely accurate projection of what the real coverage is. We know all of this, and we're going to be evolving the Explorer to show the real coverage, to incentivize locations that really need coverage, and we'll be kind of together, through the sub-DAO voting system, evolving how the compensation works, such that people are actually able to, the good installations are the ones that earn, and the ones that have 20 cells pointing to concrete wall don't. So my advice right now is on the outset, if you're like, okay, it's Genesis, let me just put the cells in the basement right now, doesn't matter. It will matter very soon, and with these setups, you will just not earn anything. So just be mindful of that going forward.
Okay, so to summarize, right, build useful coverage to your best ability. Get it out, again, as high as you can, mount it outside facing traffic if you can, with people or cars.
Slow-moving people.
Slow-moving people.
A lot of slow-moving people, that's the guidance. Yes.
Scan the QR code, look out, sign up for the wait list, look out for more announcements on that, on the subscription itself. And just remember, ultimately, we're doing our best to create a really reliable, useful service. That's why the partnership with T-Mobile is so important. The world's largest 5G network that exists already, partnering with us, I think, is critical for this, enabling us to build localized networks, I think, that can be very useful for everyone. So focus on usefulness, focus on getting people to subscribe, I would say, are the two most important things. And really encourage your friends to read the blogs, read the HIPs, get into it as technical as you like, but definitely educate yourself as you get into this journey with us. Any other parting words from both of you?
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody. I know that's been a long journey. I think Helium has a very dedicated and very large community, and a community is kind of both a benefit and a curse. Without the community, you can move really fast, but you don't have a community and you don't have a feedback. With a community, you have to account for kind of everybody's opinion, and I think it took us quite a bit longer to get to this point than we were anticipating. And I really would like to thank everybody for kind of, sticking with us, working with us, continuing to deploy the small cells. I feel like all of the components of the puzzle are now coming together such that it's much more clear to me how to arrive at a very useful outcome by, having us work together. Because I think that when a year and a half ago, Frank came over to us at Freedom Fi, he's like, oh, let's do a 5G network. Build a small cell, announce it, make waitlist. I was like, how is it going to work? I don't get it. A lot of pieces were very murky in my head, how the network is going to work with a macro network, a lot of hows. I feel like now, 90% of the hows are gone. It's clear what needs to be done. We just need to go and execute. So, thank you for co-executing with us.
And I would just add, as T-Mobile, we're rooting for you. Your success is our success. First crypto native carrier, we want to see it work. We want to see what's possible.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, community.